how do you think enterprise leaders should manage the whole balance between automation, human empathy, and decision making, and how is this shaping the entire cybersecurity space?
There are entire AI attack platforms that are being used to attack organizations. There's no way that a human team of defenders could possibly react fast enough and at the right scale to a full-blown AI-based attack. A good defensive posture would necessitate having automation or having basically the ability to give a defending AI the ability to actually take action at machine speed. Organizations are very afraid of automation. It's one of these things that we're just going to have to get over with.
Welcome to Discover Dialogues podcast, powered by TechDogs. The world of business and technology is evolving at breakneck speed. AI breakthroughs, digital transformation, and game-changing innovations are reshaping industries every day. On this show, we dive into the trends, ideas, and strategies driving the future. We're sitting down with industry leaders, innovators, and disruptors to bring you fresh insights, bold perspectives, and real conversations that matter. So plug in, tune in, and let's discover what's next.
Today on the show, we're joined by Nadir Izrael, co-founder and CTO at Armis, a cybersecurity leader with a deep engineering background, from building mission-critical systems during his time at the IDF to working as a software engineer at Google, and later co-founding Armis to address one of cybersecurity's most persistent challenges. In this episode, he unpacks securing a hyper-connected world, AI-driven attacks and defenses, why visibility matters, and how leaders should approach risk and automation at scale. Let's dive in.
Welcome to another episode of TechDogs Discover Dialogues. Nadir, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So Nadir, before we get into the complexities of cybersecurity and, the leadership advice and, which you'd like to give to the other audiences of ours, I would like to rewind the clock a little bit. And, when I, did a research about your profile, I could see that, you've navigated from coding in IDF, now, leading one of the most respected names in cybersecurity, that's Armis Security. So I want to just rewind the clock a little bit for our audience so that they can get a preview of the interesting journey that you had, till now. So can you walk us through your professional journey till now?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that I feel like my background is very cliche for Israeli cybersecurity founders, but I always liked technology, computers, coding. I started coding at a fairly young age, but it was also like the very late 90s. So think of it as right when the tech, the tech boom was happening, but before the bubble burst. So I started just coding at home, and then eventually went to start to do like an after hours course after school to go and just learn how to program, started working at it. And to kind of your point as well, I ended up going to my military service, which was mandatory in Israel. I went to be a programmer, and I specifically worked in cybersecurity, building tools in that space. And when I stepped out from that after about 6 years, I ended up I started studying computer science and physics. Physics is still a long lost dream of some time getting back to that. But I simultaneously started working at Google. This was like early 2010s. And just over 10 years ago, about 11 years ago, I left Google to try to start a company. I had a few different twists and turns at the beginning where I tried different things that were not in cybersecurity. But after about a year, I had this moment of reckoning and understanding that cybersecurity is one of these areas that is not only booming, but also that's an area of strength for me. It's something I know. It's something I understand. And 10 years ago, I started with my co-founder, Yevgeny, Armis. And, today I'm the CTO and one of the founders at the company. And it's been quite the journey so far.
That's been a great journey, I believe that, because you've seen technology evolve both in defense and in enterprise, right? And as you said, there were many twists and turns in your initial journey. And somewhere during that, that journey, you had this an aha moment, if I must say, about, cybersecurity is something, where you have your foot strong. And that is what you want to evolve into. And that's where you're working, right? And bring that lens to what's happening right now, right? Because cybersecurity has become the talk of the town. Everybody, because it is exponentially, increased. The cyber threat landscape has grown into something that, very the enterprises and even individuals are, and even the governments, right, are very concerned about and want to minimize the risk as much as they can, right? And if I believe right now, the world is a very hyper connected world, right? Every device in the hospital, factory sensor, and a corporate laptop, and even all the devices on the enterprise tech stack, right, have become a part of a larger digital ecosystem, right? And it is exciting at times because everybody is behind the whole digital first bandwagon, but at the end it also has certain risk associated to it, right? Because considering the security aspect of things, right? So I want to ask you the next question, Nadir. What do you think is the biggest blind spots, when it comes to secure the hyper-connected world that we live into today?
Well, great question. And I think you're touching on one of the biggest pain points that not only exist today, but also led to the creation of Armis as a company in the first place. 10 years ago, when we started our journey and started talking to different security organizations around the world and asked them, what is a pain for you? What is something that you can't sleep at night because of? And one of the answers that was pretty uniform, doesn't matter who we asked, was that we don't know what we have in our environment. Our blind spot is our own environment in the first place. There are many connected devices, to your point. There's lots of different digital assets, but we have no clue. We don't know what we have. And therefore, how can we possibly protect what we can't see? And Armis was actually created around that pain point. It was created around how do we basically build the equivalent of a Google Maps for the organization? How do we build something that would give them an idea of not just what they have, but also what it means to the organization? What are the different paths between different digital assets? And also, what are the different security tools that you have? So I think as it evolved over the years, it evolved into what I would today consider the biggest blind spot, to your point, of organizations, which is, again, their own environment and the ability to make sense out of it. And what I mean by that is that it's not enough to just know what's in the environment. It's about being able to quantify and understand the risk inherent to every single digital asset, and then how to work around to solve problems. Like, basically, think of it this way. Imagine if you walk up to a system and it could tell you, here are 3 things that you can do today, which would most dramatically reduce risk across the organization. That really is the power and also at the same time, the blind spot that most organizations feel today. That makes sense.
Nadir, we were discussing about, how Armis started a point where, you wanted to, you identified a problem and you worked on that problem to, resolve it for the other enterprises, right? But right now, we can see that, with AI coming to the existence, AI has become moreover and double-edged sword, right? When it is a double-edged sword, it is used by attackers as well, and it is used by defenders as well, right, to protect their enterprise tech stack. So in your preview, how do you think, enterprise leaders should, manage the whole balance, wherein between automation, human empathy, and decision making, and how is this shaping the entire cybersecurity space?
Well, that's a terrific question. I think there's a few pieces to this. First of all, AI is definitely in everything that we do, and it's definitely used by attackers on many, many different occasions. At this point in time, it's no longer just using AI as a tool. There are entire AI attack platforms that are being used to attack organizations and to carry out a variety of different cyber incidents. Now, I think that defenders are leveraging AI as well, us as an example, but for lots of different reasons, attackers usually outpace in the beginning defenders. They have more of a incentive to try and leverage a gap faster, gain traction with it, and then defenders eventually kind of close the gap. Now, you can see this, by the way, in a lot of different ways. And I think that the biggest change that this is making is this understanding that there's no way that a human team of defenders could possibly react fast enough and at the right scale to a full-blown AI-based attack. AI can rattle all the fences at once. It can attack both the technical as well as the human element. It can try different things and basically learn and adapt on the fly. These are all things that you need to react very quickly to. And a team of human defenders can't react that fast to all of these changes, which means that a good defensive posture would necessitate having automation or having basically the ability to give a defending AI the ability to actually take action at machine speed. That's something that to date in the cybersecurity world was not and is not a common practice. Organizations are very afraid of automation. They're very afraid giving the keys, if you will, to an AI, for instance, or an automated system to take action. But it's one of these things that we're just going to have to get over with because it's something that is the only possible way to counteract an attack like that. Now, lastly, what I'll say is that there is a silver lining or kind of a good news in all of this, which is once AI is on par on the defensive side, there is actually a distinct advantage for defensive AIs and for offensive AIs, and that is a data advantage. A defensive AI, given that you presumably already have something to tell you what are all your digital assets and where your secure controls, a defensive AI would have an information advantage. It would know where all of the vulnerabilities are. It would know where all the critical digital assets are, and it would understand the security controls much better than an attacking AI that doesn't have access to that information. So eventually, things will get better, but in the beginning, things will probably get worse before they do.
Definitely. But, with AI coming to the in existence, right, and everybody is trying to integrate AI into their work processes, there is a lot of discussion going on, between the workforce, basically, that, and they're considering AI as a replacer, right, and not as an enabler. That everybody is in that fear, right? Will AI replace their jobs, right? Till now, by point of the whatever discussions I had with the decision makers and key stakeholders across businesses, right? Everybody says that it is not a replacer, but it is an enabler, right? But how would you, put this across? That how is the human and AI collaboration? How will it revolutionize the whole cybersecurity space? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. I think that the cybersecurity space, the main thing that you can see in it is not that there's an overabundance of people and, everything works like that. It's the other way around. There's actually a huge shortage in people, and you need people to be able to do more with less. You need people within the cybersecurity space to be able to do many different tasks, ramp up very quickly, and be able to scale their work without adding a lot of humans, because it's really hard to find good, capable humans that would be able to drive that through. So what I would say is that I think that especially in the cybersecurity space, but not only there, AI is absolutely something that supercharges what people do. If it takes away any kind of work, it's usually low-level menial work, and it allows those people to focus and scale their efforts exponentially. Most organizations have millions and millions of actual vulnerabilities in their environment. They only get to a fraction of them when solving them. Imagine if they had the tools to be able to scale and reach more of their attack surface. I don't think the result of that would be cutting the humans out of the loop. I think the result of that would be that one person would be worth 100 people in that shape. And those 100 people or the effect of 100 people is needed.
For sure. And also because you spoke about how there's this skill, or there's a shortage of humans in the cybersecurity space, right? Either not all of them have the required skill sets to be in the space, but also with technology evolving in such rapid space, whatever the skills are, they can become obsolete in very quickly, right? And especially considering the skill gap in the cybersecurity space, how do you suggest that we can overcome the skill gap, or make humans more capable to handle this complex space of cybersecurity?
I think that the answer to that actually does lie in AI, both for training but also for day-to-day operations. I think that the ability to take the data that exists in so many different systems. And most security organizations have plenty of tools, plenty of detectors, plenty of things that are feeding telemetry. Usually, the biggest problem is to be able to zoom out and see the forest for the trees. And that's something that AI is immensely helpful in. The second thing is the ability to monitor kind of everything at once. And again, let humans view the data from different perspectives as a whole, view the conclusions that come from initial AI assessments, and then be able to do something about it. And lastly, I think that um, the skill gap and the experience needed, that's something that I think, again, AIs can be used as extremely effective training mechanisms. I think that the more they're leveraged with the experience and understanding of your particular organization and tailoring the data and the information and the experience needed, you can ramp up training significantly, and you can make people more effective from the first day by just bridging the gap between the data and the insight part to what they already know. So I think this is one area where AI is absolutely an enabler. There are other areas where I believe that we'll see more of a replacement, but again, that would allow less people to do more work and would allow those other people to probably do something else.
And by integrating AI, I believe that there are chances of a lot of false positive coming to existence, right? And so how do you suggest that when enterprises try to integrate AI and automation, what are the best practices that they can minimize the false positives and focus on what the real issues are, and focus on what is the real threat to the organization?
I think the key with anything data related when it comes to false positives, but especially with AI and how it analyzes things, is corroborating information. Not one source, but multiple sources, being able to correlate and put things together. And I'd add that the same approach applies to AI as well. Multi-agent approaches over single-agent approaches. The ability to essentially have a panel of experts, if you will, that review the data from different perspectives, multiple data perspectives, not just one, and the ability to effectively put together a consensus between them. I think that these are tried and true techniques that work in other places too, but they definitely work in this case as well. And lastly, the AI needs to be learning constantly from everything that the humans in the loop are doing. Everything should be feeding how responses are done, how things go. And of course, there's also the fact that the technology itself is evolving at a very rapid pace. So keeping up with what are the engines that are the latest and greatest in understanding and backing up this approach, and which ones to use for your particular use cases. Those are all things that we just all have to get both educated on and also use in practice.
Definitely. And, like when we see right now, and when businesses are scaling, right, and when they're growing especially, and not a lot of stakeholders consider cybersecurity as a business enabler, right? Majority of the times, a lot of decision makers, right, and stakeholders consider cybersecurity as a cost center, right, rather than helping the businesses to grow. Uh, and I believe that that should be a change that needs to be done, because CISOs are not just tech leaders, but I believe they are business enablers, right? And so how do you see the role of cybersecurity shifting from being just a cost center to being a business enabler?
I think that that's already happening in a lot of different ways with security organizations and how they embed and understand their broader business role. At the end of the day, I think that CISOs don't want to be, and they should never be, the people who say no. It's not about stopping the business from moving forward. It's about offering paths for both enabling the business to take on new technologies and adopt them well through the use of resilient and flexible cybersecurity strategies and architectures. But also, it's about being able to put together not just the guardrails, but sometimes the technology itself to even run the business in the first place. Plenty of products that security uses are actually multi-use products that help other businesses do what they need to do. Plenty of the people who work within a security organization end up working on different workflows, different things that not just save the business money and, of course, lower risk of even more consequences of money, but actually move the business itself forward. I think that this is a super important skill for today's CISOs. CISOs today are expected to not just spend money, but also show the effectiveness of what they do and how it benefits the organization. I think the best CISOs I've seen focus on that as almost their first piece of their role, and everything else sort of rolls into that.
You mentioned the point of how CISOs need to communicate their value, or show them, show businesses what is the value that they bring to the table, or in that perspective. And I believe that sometimes stakeholders do not understand the technical languages that the CISOs might have to convey, right? So what are the best practices that you suggest? How can security leaders communicate their value to the stakeholders in a way that board members understands? And can you please share some light?
I think that the best CISOs I know, the best leaders in these spaces, one of the things that they're best at is relating things directly back to the mission of the business. Meaning everything, every technical thing, every role, every project, every tool, every person ultimately relates to a primary core mission of the business and to the main, I'd say, the main currency that the business looks at. So for most commercial businesses, that's money. What will it cost versus what's the averted risk? What do we expect the problem to be, as an example? But there are organizations like federal and defense agencies, as an example, where the mission might be something else entirely. The mission might be not having a critical system go down because it endangers lives. Same goes for things like hospitals, as an example. The mission might be something different. It might also be measured different, but the best CISOs and leaders relate that directly to the mission and relate it in a way where it's really clear that every piece of work that they do advances that mission. That's something that everyone can uniformly understand. It takes you out of the realm of explaining technology and into the realm of explaining business risk, and everything that goes around that. And ultimately, that's what other business leaders really want to know. They want to understand and quantify risk and be able to mitigate that risk, to understand what they're doing for that, and then understand how resources are allocated appropriately.
But I believe that at times it will be very difficult to quantify risk, right? Because it's a very debatable condition wherein we're speaking about on. So what are the measures or what KPIs or should be there in place to ensure that the security teams are right on track? Because right now a lot of organizations consider that being not attacked, that means they're safe, right? But there might be a threat that is lingering in the enterprise tech for a long time before it comes on the surface, that you realize that they've been attacked by a cyber criminal. So are there any few KPIs in place that security teams can put in place to ensure they are on the right path and the systems are quite secure?
So I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes quantifying is hard, and sometimes also it's really difficult to still align the day-to-day to things. And also, risk is one of these things where it's theoretical, right? Who's to say if the probability is 10% or 5% or 50%? So it might be difficult at times to really relate that. So two things. One, it doesn't have to be an exact science. I think that if you can, again, simplify and relate, it's kind of like how in product development, a lot of times teams would use what's called t-shirt sizes. So, this is a small, this is a medium, this is a large, this is an extra large. And I think that separating risks and understanding the probability and the repercussions in t-shirt size type things can also sometimes relate the point really well. But the other thing that I think works exceptionally well is competition. So if you can relate the landscape in which you work and other competitors or companies that are similar to you within that space and what happened to them, that is a surefire way to get any kind of business-oriented executives on your side. At the end of the day, if you're a big, chocolate producer, and the other chocolate producer got really hit by something, and as a result, they lost millions of dollars in business, reputation, brand, and all that, that's a very easy story to come back and say, okay, let's take a look at what they had going for them and what we have going for us. And let's take a look at where we're weak from a security standpoint and where we needed to work to improve. I think that those bring it down from a theoretical realm into a very real thing that can happen. I think it really helps ground other business leaders and sort of give them an idea of just what the damage can be.
For sure. Because I believe that behind every secure system or an enterprise tech stack, there are, there are decision makers that making smart, balanced decisions to make their enterprise stack more resilient, right? And because you have grown, global teams, right? And you've been through the technological change that has been happening, right, in the last 2 decades. So I want to shift the focus of the conversation and want to zoom in onto your leadership advice or your leadership expertise that you would like to share it with the others. So I would like to ask you one question, Nadir, that would be, what is the most important leadership principle that you have learned while leading an enterprise at scale?
This all might sound like a cliche, but I think cliches are cliches for a reason. And I think you sometimes have to learn it over and over again on your own to really hammer it through. First of all, I think that what I've learned is that business is people. It's not companies, it's not organizations, it's people. Business is done between people and not between companies. And relationships inside organizations are relationships between people. Now, that means that you have to get the right people in the right places. But it also means that some of the usual cliches about the fact that no one fires fast enough or challenges things fast enough. And most importantly, I think if you have a problem with an organization or a process, 9 times out of 10, the problem is with the leader. Now, that's something that, it's a statement that may make sense, may not, I don't know, but it's something that I've come to realize is very true. And our instinct as empathetic people is usually to try and help the leader in their role, try to support, try to add things. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that 9 times out of 10, the problem is with the leader. And especially when you think about how startup companies grow very rapidly, mature very rapidly, a lot of times you outgrow the leader much faster than you think. That leader might have been the right choice a year or two ago, but might no longer be the right choice. And understanding that and making changes accordingly. I'm not even saying, by the way, firing the person, maybe moving them to a different role, maybe having a conversation about what that role should be, but definitely act fast, because 9 times out of 10, if an organization is failing or if a process or anything like that is failing, it's the leader that actually needs to be changed and not anything else.
So, you said that, like it's the leader, at times can be a problem. And that's where the cultural drill downs to the entire organization, right? And you also said, about, hiring that leader, making that leader might be a right decision 1 or 2 years back. But right now, things change, technology changes, and you need to adapt, right? And especially in a space like cybersecurity, which is evolving at a rapid scale, you need to be always on the tip of your toes to ensure that you are there to ensure that there is no risk to the organization and you're quite safe and secure, right? So my advice to my question to you would be, what advice would you give to the other leaders in the tech, in the cybersecurity space, to ensure that they drive business value and ensure they achieve what they are expected to achieve?
I think the best advice I have is to always keep moving. I think that there's a lot to be said about thinking about things through, analyzing things, but I think that especially in today's world, it is almost impossible to achieve certainty about what's the right direction. You have to, at least to some degree, listen to your gut, and you have to keep moving. I always tell people, I get told that I make mistakes, at least 3 times a day. Someone will walk up to me and say, I'm making a mistake. I should be doing this or that or anything like that. And I've had people tell me this when I've parted ways with people and let people go. I've had people say this when we chose to stop a project or start a project. But I think the point is, and what I keep telling them is that my job is to make these mistakes, like take ownership, move forward, see where we make mistakes and adapt very quickly and react to that. But always keep moving, because while you're moving, changing directions, doing things, that's something that people accept if you're authentic about it, if you tell people exactly what's going on. But you can't stop moving, because today's world just doesn't allow you to sit down and analyze things before moving. And the second thing I'll say that relates to the people part that we even talked about before, authenticity and transparency are actually keys in making people follow that journey with you, even as you flip here, flip there, admit mistakes here, admit mistakes there. I think that ultimately people are very willing to go on bumpy rides as long as they feel that you're being authentic and real with them, that you're sharing with them what that journey looks like, why we're doing what we're doing. And I think that authenticity and transparency go a long way in building a very strong organization that trusts its leaders.
And so, as we've been discussing about this process, this technology, right? And I believe people is a very core part of any organization's growth. And as you've been a leader, all this while, are there any traits or any that you look when you hire for people, and what is that trait should be that others leaders also can follow to ensure that they hire the best of the resource and ensure that the business scales as well?
I think that there's 2 things, and they sort of relate to the same trait that I look for, but I think there are two things that are worth mentioning. One is hunger. You want people that you can see a killer instinct in their eyes. You can see the hunger to succeed. They're not there to just do their job. They're there to win. They're there to do what it takes in order to push the business and push themselves forward. And that is becoming a more and more rare trait. And it's something that when I see that in someone, I'm like, okay, that person is going somewhere. And I think what goes hand in hand with that is someone who is, I don't have to say authentic about it, but definitely not trying to show something that they're not trying to sort of show some sort of different perspective, just who they are, how they are. And they're willing to also accept the fact that what they're going to do is go into a flawed organization with other flawed people. They themselves are also flawed in certain ways, and that's perfectly fine. They're here to work despite all these things. They don't need everything around them to be perfect for this to work. And I think that those things are the things that I look for, especially in leaders, but also in just anyone who's contributing towards an organization.
Definitely. I know, to the point of, there should be an hunger, that gleam in a person's eye, that they want to grow, they want to scale, and they want to reach places. I believe that these kind of people are more successful, one, and they achieve what they dream of. So they're the go-getters. So thank you so much, Nadir, for we've been discussing about cybersecurity, the complex space, the risk to businesses, and what all other trends going on right now in cybersecurity. But before we let you go today, we want to end this on a lighter note. So the next segment we have for you is a rapid fire section, which is set up a few questions, and I would request you not to overthink, and just give whatever comes to your mind first. Please let me know whenever you're ready, and let's go for it.
I'm ready.
Perfect. What's your favorite way to unplug from work every day?
If I have an hour, then I would go and probably play a game like, I don't know, computer, PlayStation, something along these lines. If I have like a day or something like on a weekend, I would probably go and jump out of something high or go on something fast. I love things that are more extreme on that end.
So, would you like a beach escape, or would you like to hike a mountain?
More beach usually, but sometimes a mountain can be fun, but more beach usually.
Uh-huh. And one food, that you would never be tired of eating.
My mom's schnitzel all the time.
Uh-huh. And early morning or late nights, what do you resonates with you the most?
Honestly, it turns out to be usually both. I usually wake up early. I also end up going to bed late, and then I try to catch up on sleep somehow in the weekend. So a little bit of both, but I don't know. It comes out into both, honestly.
And what's a place that you've traveled and you just still felt like home?
That's a really good one. I think I always feel at home somehow in New York, even though I've never actually lived there. But I always feel like that's a little bit of home. Yeah, probably that.
Mm-hmm. What's your personal definition of freedom?
The ability, not necessarily the desire, but the ability to do anything that you want and not have any or almost any constraints in doing that.
And one last question. If aliens come down to Earth, what is the first thing you would like to taste?
What is the first thing I would like to what?
If you
Ask?
what you yeah, I mean, what is the thing that you would like to offer them and they would like to taste? Like, what is that you would feed?
To taste. Wow. I would let them taste my mom's schnitzel. I'm telling you, there's no war is gonna happen after they try that. There'll be peace.
Definitely. Nadir, this has been an incredible conversation so far. Thank you so much for taking your time today and speaking to us and giving our audience a quick slide through your journey. How cybersecurity space is important, how Armis came into existence, and what are the advice that other leaders can follow. So I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining. Do you have any other parting words for our audiences?
No, I think this has been great for me as well. I think cybersecurity is an incredibly important space, especially today, and only growing. So appreciate everyone listening and keep doing the good work.
Thank you so much for your time, Nadir.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, or your favorite podcast app. Catch past episodes and more at techdogs.com. See you next time.